Now, the most important properties of the ocean spectrum, I'd say, are here on the wind parameters. And I would say that the most defining property is the speed property. And this speed property is referring to the speed of the wind. So if we increase the speed of the wind dramatically, say to 25, you will notice that we will have very high waves, as if we were in the ocean or the open sea. Notice how also the contrast between the large waves and the small waves becomes very evident. On the other hand, if you want to simulate, for example, a lake or a very calm river, you can decrease the speed, say to 3. Or we can even go lower. Let's try with 1.5. And now this starts to look more like a lake. Okay, so I'll go back to a larger ocean. Let's try with 15 or probably 10. And let's take a look at directional movement. I'm going to change to a top view. I'll press spacebar 2 and then frame my ocean. And for now, I will increase the directional movement to 1. I will also change the directional bias to 10. So notice now how we have very defined streaks and a very defined direction of these waves. Now, as I lower this value, you'll start to know how these waves start to spread in a wider angle. Now, if we decrease the directional bias, you will notice that these streaks start to somehow disappear. They become less noticeable. So usually if you have very low values in both directional bias and directional movement, you will have a more irregular and somehow more organic waves. Now the chop value will make more defined ridges on the waves. For example, if I increase the chop to 1, you will notice, especially on top of the waves, we will have a more sharp and defined ridge. Let's try decreasing this value, for example, to 0.1. And now the waves will be smoother. So let me try increasing the resolution of this ocean spectrum to 11. Go back to my chop, and you can even go above 1. I'll go with 1.5 this time. And you will start noticing the difference. Just make sure you don't go super high with this chop value, because sometimes the waves can start intersecting themselves. So again, I will bring this down to 1. So as you have noticed, not only the speed of the waves is determined by the speed value, but also the shape of it. Now, if you somehow achieve the look of the waves, but still you're not happy with the speed, probably you want them to go faster or slower, then you can use a time scale to change that speed. Okay, let me decrease the resolution again. I'll go with 8 this time. Turn on the real-time toggle and press play. So this time I'll decrease the speed of these waves by changing the time scale. So we could achieve somehow a slow motion look if we go very low with this value. Now, if you're happy with the speed of the waves, but you probably want a specific wave to be before or after, you can also change the time offset. So this will change the phase of the wave, but not the actual speed. Aside from the wind parameters, we have the amplitude tab. Now, if you take a look at these parameters, we have the reference wind and the scale. And this can serve as a multiplier for the height of the waves. For example, if you're happy with the size of the waves and the shape, but still you want the waves to go higher or lower, you can use the scale multiplier to do that. Another very nice parameter here is the min wavelength and the filter parameters. For example, If you don't want certain amplitudes, you can completely remove these amplitudes using these parameters. For example, I will increase the min wavelength, and you will notice how the high frequency waves are disappearing, thus smoothing out the overall look of the ocean while retaining the low frequency waves.